Kelsey. This is my channel, The Fancy Hat Lady Reads. I am wearing one of my fancy booktube hats, and today I am bringing you my TBR for the month of April, which includes the Unicorn Readathon, for which I am a co-host, that is over this coming weekend, April 6th and 7th. I'll link my announcement down below, as well as other information about the Readathon. Basically, it's a themed reading weekend, reading books that either contain or have in the cover or on the title some sort of magical creature. So I'm going to start with my TBR for that. Because I'm still reading very slowly right now and I don't have the greatest attention span for long books, it's taking me a long time to get through things, and because this is a short readathon, I have chosen to read some shorter things for this readathon, even though they weren't previously on my overstuffed TBR for the month. And I am choosing to go for some things that have been on my Kindle for a really long time without me reading them. These are all options for me. I won't get to all of these. I may get to one of these books on my Kindle, and which one will depend on how ambitious I'm feeling and how long each of them is. I think the shortest one is a novella by Intisar Khanani, and this is Sunbolt. This is the first book in a self-published series called the Sunbolt Chronicles, and I believe this has vampires. But if I'm feeling more in the mood for an anthology of short stories over the weekend, I have two of those that fit the theme as well. And the first of those is called Fantastic Creatures, which is literally an anthology of indie authors' stories about fantastic creatures, so I've been saving it for some round of this readathon. And then the other one is Clockwork Phoenix 5, edited by Mike Allen, which is the fifth book in this fantasy anthology series, but because it's an anthology series, I don't think it matters if I'm reading them out of order. And this is more of a general fantasy anthology from Mythic Delirium, but the title, of course, does have Phoenix in it, and so does the cover. The last thing that I have that is a very short, quick read option for the Unicorn Readathon weekend, I have in print, and it's a physical volume of manga, and this is just so perfectly themed. It is How to Treat Magical Beasts, Mine and Master's Medical Journal, Volume 1. And this just looks very cute. It seems to be about a girl who's learning veterinary medicine in like a fantasy world where magic is disappearing, and she wants to learn how to treat magical beasts. This is another one that I was sort of saving for a round of this readathon because it is so perfectly themed. Next, I want to talk about the things that I'm currently reading that I would like to continue on with during this month. The book that I'm really actively reading right now, where I'm not going to pick up anything else until I'm finished with it because I am so close to the end, is A Conspiracy of Truths by Alexandra Rowland. This was slow for me to get into because of when I started reading it. I had to set it aside for a couple of months and then come back to it. But now that I'm really committed to reading the whole book and I'm further in, I'm really enjoying it. And then the other thing I'm reading is a library book, and that's Half Witch by John Schoffstall, which I put a hold on and started reading before Hugo nominations closed, because I still had nomination slots in the Lodestar category, and I was sort of desperately looking around for something I might be able to read in the last few days before nominations closed that I might like enough to nominate, and I didn't get far enough into this to make a call on it. But because I do want to finish this and it's a library book, I don't want to set it aside indefinitely. I can keep renewing it for a while, but I do have a lot of library books out now, and I'd like to be able to start returning some of them. Now, if you'll recall from like way back in November, December, A Conspiracy of Truths was the fourth book in a set of five-star TBR predictions that I was trying to get through. And I have one of those left, and once I read this one last book, I'll be able to do a wrap-up for that set of 5-star TBR predictions. So this is very high priority for me right now, and this is Winter Rose by Patricia A. McKillip, which is a Tam Lin retelling that is supposed to be very lyrical and dreamlike. So I have a couple more odds and ends I'd like to mention that are on the table for me at the end of the video, but the majority of my TBR for this month has to be reading for the BookTube SFF Awards and starting to look at reading for the Hugo Awards, because the Hugo shortlists were announced yesterday morning, and it sort of threw all my reading plans up in the air because I had been focused on, okay, what's nominated for the BookTube SFF Awards, what are those read-alongs, and now things that are also on the Hugo and Lodestar shortlists are much higher priority for me than things that aren't. So I had 2 books on my TBR for this month because they were BookTube SFF Award nominees that are now double high priority because they are also Hugo and Lodestar nominees. First, I have The Calculating Stars by Mary Robinette Kowal, which is one of last month's read-alongs for the BookTube SFF Awards, and I missed that month's read-along, but I want to read it this month. This is nominated for the BookTube SFF Awards in the science fiction category and in the best novel category for the Hugos. And then, for young adult, I have out from the library The Cruel Prince by Holly Black, which is a fae story. I've had mixed feelings about Holly Black in the past, but I really want to read some YA right now, like some fluffy, overindulgent young adult fantasy might be just what I need to, like, kick me back into reading high gear. But this is nominated in the young adult category for the BookTube SFF Awards, I believe with a read-along this month. And then this is also on the Lodestar shortlist, which is the not a Hugo for YA. Now, I had some other things that I was planning on reading this month for the BookTube SFF Awards that did not make the Hugo shortlists, but are still high priority for me. The first is Circe by Madeline Miller, which I believe I also missed the read-along for last month. But this is one that I own, so I definitely want to get to it. This was very anticipated for me when it was released, and I took a long time to actually get my hands on a copy. So this is definitely one I want to read while the BookTube SFF Award read-alongs are still going, even if I missed the read-along month for this one. And then in the middle grade category, I've actually started listening on audiobook to Aru Shah and the End of Time by Roshani Chokshi. And I added this to my currently reading shelf a little while ago. This is another one where I missed the read-along for it last month. The reason that I'm having a hard time sort of convincing myself to actually get back into listening to it was that I listened to the first 2 chapters of it in the hospital with my mom, and part of me just has that little block where I don't quite want to go back to where I was in that story because I don't want to, like, go back to where I was in that hospital. And I'm sure once I actually start listening to it again, I'll be fine, but that's why this did not happen last month, even though I was ostensibly making the effort. And then I have 2 more of the BookTube SFF Award nominees that I got out from the library because they were going to be April read-alongs. And I sort of thought that both of these might have a chance of making it onto the Hugo and Lodestar shortlists, which would have made them higher priority for me, but neither of them did, so these might drop off the bottom of my priority reading for that reason, and also because these are not 2 of the nominees that I was most excited for in the first place. But the first is Foundryside by Robert Jackson Bennett, which is nominated in the fantasy category, and Skyward by Brandon Sanderson, which is nominated in YA. Now, because I have this overstuffed TBR problem, I would probably just say, forget it, I'm not complying with the read-along schedule. These are both so chunky, neither of them are happening this month. Except that there was an announcement just this morning for a round of Tome Topple that is happening this month. And these 2 would be the 2 books on my TBR for the month that were over 500 pages. The challenges for Tome Topple are all different this time around, and I was not planning on that. I knew there was going to be an announcement in April, and I was sort of assuming that the challenges would be the same that they have been the last several rounds, and so I was sort of prepared for those challenges, and they are not. So if I participate in Tome Topple, I won't be doing this round's set of challenges. It's just, it can't happen with all of the awards reading. But I might try for one of these just so I can nominally participate. I'll link the info for Tome Topple down below. I don't remember the dates off the top of my head, but I'll put it down in the description. And, but then there's one more thing that's a graphic novel that I could read for Tome Topple, even though there isn't a graphic novel challenge specifically this time around. But it depends on whether or not it comes into the library on time. After the Hugo nominees were announced yesterday, I put a library hold on one of the books that's nominated in the graphic novel category, or the graphic work category, that I actually want to read. Surprise, surprise. I always just assume that nothing that will make the Hugo shortlist in graphic novel is something that I want to read, but I really do want to read On a Sunbeam by Tillie Walden. And I looked it up, and it turns out that in print, this was originally a webcomic, but in print, this is over 500 pages. This looks like a really character-driven sci-fi story with LGBTQ representation. I am very curious about this. I'd seen this recommended online before, but I don't know that I have any booktube friends who've actually read it. So if this comes in time for Tome Topple, this might be happening. And then I have just two more books that are the odds and ends I mentioned earlier that I want to show you that are theoretically on my TBR for this month. The first is the Lady Vaults book club pick for this month, for April. I have been so bad, and I've not participated in one of the Lady Vaults read-alongs for months and months and months. I had sort of fallen behind and given up in despair several months before things started happening in my family. But this month, the pick is Kalpa Imperial by Angelica Gorodischer. I have to double check that pronunciation because I'm sure I got it wrong. This is translated by Ursula K. Le Guin, but this is one that I actually had on my shelves, so I didn't have to get it from the library or interlibrary loan it or anything like I have for some of the other Lady Vaults picks, which has made them slower for me to get, and hence I haven't gotten them in time, etc., etc. But this one I have sitting on my shelf. It is pretty short. I expect it to be kind of denser writing, though. I think it's a sort of a collection of interconnected short stories. But I would like to read this month when it's the Lady Vaults pick. And then I have one more book that is high priority for me because I am borrowing it from a friend and I would like to give it back. And that is Fire Logic by Laurie J. Marks. And this is the first book in a series that came to my attention because Small Beer Press is reissuing the first 3 books in the series and then is, I think, publishing the 4th book, which is previously unpublished. But this is the old edition. I think this was published in 2002. So this, I think, is like a high fantasy series that takes place in a matriarchal society, so I'm very curious about it, and obviously it has something to do with elemental magic. And my friend wanted to know what I would think of this book and offered to loan me her copy, so that's why I have this right now, sort of as a priority. So anyhow, that's a list of way too many books that I might try to read this month. I'm still very slumpy. I hate to use the word slumpy because I don't feel so much like this is a reading slump as like an overall emotional life slump that is affecting my reading. But the Hugo shortlist announcement that happened yesterday has gotten me very, very jazzed up about a lot of things. And with all the other readathons and read-alongs happening this month, hopefully I will be just very jazzed in a positive way and not like overstressed. So that's my hope. Let me know what you think of these books that I'm planning on read or planning on trying to read. Let me know what you think. Also, let me know if you're planning on participating in the Unicorn Readathon. All of the info down below. I and the other hosts will be doing Twitter sprints over the weekend on Twitter. Please join in if you are so inclined. Anyhow, I hope you're having a nice day. That is all. Bye for now.